By and large, I try to stay away from political issues in the running of this channel, and this is not the type of video that I normally make. Now, when I say political issues, what I mean is problems going on within the motorcycle industry, and there's always something going on. But I don't take sides and I don't get involved in it. I like this channel to be a positive, entertaining diversion from everyday life for bikers. So I stay out of it and I just concentrate on what I think of as being the fun stuff. Over the last 18 months or so, I have seen one or two dramas play out. Dramas mainly relating to copied or counterfeit products. Now, when we think of counterfeit products, what normally springs to mind are things like Rolex watches, Ray-Ban sunglasses, Gucci and Chanel handbags, even perfumes. If there's a market for it, someone somewhere will make a knockoff copy and try to make a fast buck. Now, I remember a story in the news, it must be 30 years ago at least, of a guy who bought a Rolex watch. Now, at that time, the real thing sold for about £2,500, but he got himself an absolute bargain and bought a brand new, in the box, unused Rolex watch for £1,000. Now, he thought that he'd stole himself an absolute bargain, but the joke turned out to be on him. Because when this watch was checked out by an expert, it was discovered that in reality he'd spent £1,000 on a product that had an intrinsic value of less than £5. Now, as with all these counterfeit products, the bubble bursts quite quickly. There's no doubt about it, it does devalue the original manufacturer's business, but it also devalues the counterfeit manufacturer's business, because once the word gets out, it can no longer charge huge amounts of money for the counterfeit products that it's making. And that same counterfeit Rolex watch these days will probably sell for about £30, novelty value only. And no self-respecting customer will actually buy them, because we all know, and our friends know, that no one's going to be fooled into thinking that we can afford a watch that costs the equivalent of 6 months of our income. So it must be a knockoff. But of course that doesn't apply to millennials, because they think this is new and no one else knows about it. And everyone thinks that those Ray-Ban sunglasses that they're wearing are real. And so for the counterfeiters, as each product line bubble bursts, they look along the line for something else to copy, because they're caught in this endless vicious circle of making a knockoff product, making a huge profit in the first few weeks, and then 6 months later finding that the production costs actually outweigh what they're able to sell that item for. Now, custom parts for motorcycles has become big business. It's reached a pinnacle that I've never seen it at before. Well designed, high quality pieces of motorcycle hardware that understandably sell for a pretty penny. So that is where a proportion of these counterfeiters have now turned their attention. Now, surprisingly, these counterfeits don't usually follow the usual scenario. It's not necessarily some opportunist engineering firm in Taiwan or Thailand or China that's taken it upon themselves to copy these parts and sell them on. It's usually someone in our own backyard that instigates it. Now, before I go any further, I have taken advice before I made this video this morning, and I was told not to name and shame anybody, not to name any names, and to try and keep it general. But I can give you the names of some of the manufacturers that have had problems. People like Rizoma, British Customs, Free Spirits, Motone Customs, even Triumph motorcycles themselves have all had some of their products copied. And I'm ashamed to say that I unwittingly last year reviewed one of those products, and it wasn't until about 8 months later that I realised what had happened. So it's really easy to get caught out. Now, first of all, I need to explain a few things. Most of the companies that I deal with and review products for are still in the investment stage of business, even though they may have been going for quite a few years. And what I mean by that is that although on the face of it the parts that they sell seem very expensive, they're not really making much money out of it. Now, from the design stage to the actual first products coming off the production line and being ready for sale can take over a year. The design stage itself is a lengthy process. Then they've got to ascertain the best materials to make these parts from. They've got to be safe, they've got to be good quality. Then they've got to find out what the best production methods are to make sure that that quality standard is maintained. And that usually means going through a series of prototypes. The factories have to tool up. There's a lot of investment involved. And I was only talking to a manufacturer 2 or 3 weeks ago who has a part that's been in development for 18 months now, but it's going to cost a phenomenal £60,000 to obtain the necessary tools to actually produce it. So it's been put on hold until they can raise that amount of money. Bearing in mind that they've been at it with this product for over a year and they've seen no money back in return. So the ticket price that we pay for these items once they are on sale does seem pretty high. But as with most manufacturing businesses, a huge proportion of that price that we pay is paying back the effort, the time and the investment that went into producing that part in the first place. And only a small proportion of it is actually profit. Now, all these manufacturers have their own website shops and they sell these items from those website shops. But they also rely on a network of dealerships to get as many of these products out in order to try and recoup those investment costs back. And for the most part, these are hard-working, honest dealers. But every now and again, something goes wrong. Now, this happens in the UK, America, anywhere in Europe. A particular dealer who perhaps is having a bit of a hard time, is not getting the sales in that he needs, gets a consignment of, let's say for the sake of argument, headlamp brackets from someone like Rizoma or British Customs. These brackets cost him about £50. He needs to cover his overheads and make a profit. He sells them out at, let's say, £80 or £90. But one day he decides that's not enough anymore, so he gets in touch with a contact in China. He sends an example of these headlamp brackets across to China and asks his contact there if he can copy them. The upshot of this is that a few months later he receives a consignment from China of what appear to be carbon copy headlamp brackets, and they're only costing him £7 a pair. They look just like the real thing except the brand name's missing. But to all intents and purposes, they look, smell and feel like the real thing. Now, this resemblance is often only skin deep, because that guy in China needed to make a profit as well. He'll be expecting at least £3 profit out of each of these items. So it's made from the cheapest quality monkey metal that he thinks he can get away with. And instead of CNC machining it from billet, what he's done is he's made an imprint of these parts, used that to make a mould, and he's rough cast it. He then sticks it through his CNC machine, and when it comes out the other end, it looks like a CNC machine part, although in reality it isn't. Now, when the dealer receives these, what he will often do is he'll put them up on his website at a price that undercuts every other dealer and the original manufacturer by a huge margin. He may even advertise it with a picture of the original manufactured piece, even though that's not what he's actually selling to you. And the best bit for him is that for a £7 investment, he's selling this off for £75, or maybe less, but he's undercutting both the original manufacturer and the genuine hard-working dealerships by a huge margin so that they can't compete with him. Then your unwitting bike owner who thinks that he's spotted a bargain buys it, and quite often is none the wiser. Now, it doesn't just stop there, because the guy in China, once he's been told that there's a huge market for these, he'll make some for himself as well, and they'll pop up on eBay and Amazon and wherever else. And because they've only cost him £4 each, he's able to charge even less for it. And this is happening all over. Now, this has been a big problem for Harley-Davidson owners for years, and it is becoming a big problem for the modern classic Triumph owner. I read a statistic the other day that 1 in 5 of branded products held up for sale on sites like Amazon and eBay are in fact counterfeit. So unless you know the seller well that you're buying from on those sites, they're best avoided. A lot of us do have a specific dealer that we've dealt with regularly over the years, a dealer that we respect and trust, and if that's the case, stick with them. Don't be tempted to just jump across to someone else because they're offering a product that you're after at a substantially reduced price. This is how these scammers get you. And if all else fails and you want to be absolutely sure that you're getting the genuine article, go direct to the manufacturer. Now, not all manufacturers put their trademark or logo on their products, and those that do don't necessarily put them on all of the products. But if you buy a product that is normally stamped with the maker's name and then when it arrives it doesn't have that maker's name on it, chances are it's counterfeit. Now, don't forget, these scammers live by the wits and they're used to having to deal with these sort of problems daily. Don't be taken in by a quick fire answer as to why the item that you've bought differs from the item that you thought you was buying. What you've got to remember when they manufacture these parts is that their aim is not to impress and please the customer. Their aim is to fool the customer. They don't have to worry about warranties because they don't provide one. They're not concerned with your statutory rights and they're not concerned with your safety. All they want is to part you from your money. To that end, although the part may look okay, it won't have been subjected to any form of safety or standards testing, probably because it will be unlikely to pass it. And they also won't care if the anodizing or the paint starts to come off shortly after you bought it. And in a lot of cases, the customer soon realises that whereas initially he was patting himself on the back for managing to snag a £90 custom part for £30, he's soon kicking himself because he spent £30 on £5 worth of monkey metal. And then you have to consider the consequences that this kind of trade has on the custom parts industry itself. Now, 20 years ago, we were all advised and we all knew that you kept your bike standard, you didn't customise it, because when it came to you reselling that bike, it would devalue it. For the first time in my life, I'm seeing a situation where adding quality custom parts from respected manufacturers to your bike can actually enhance its value. This trade is putting that in jeopardy. For a start, those custom parts manufacturers that we all know and love are going to start falling by the wayside because they're not going to be able to keep trading under these circumstances. Also, once it becomes commonly accepted that there are a lot of fake counterfeit parts on the market that have been put onto bikes, this situation of enhancing the value of our bikes is going to go out of the window and we'll be back to where we were 20 years ago. Now, I'm going to cut this video here because I don't think there's an awful lot more that I can say. Hopefully what I have done is just raised your awareness of this problem that is going on. Some of you may have already fallen victim to it, and I would like to hear any stories that people have got in the comments section below. Be vigilant and watch your back when you're selecting custom parts for your bike. Don't just look for the lowest price. Now, can I also ask that people do not leave comments or send me emails asking me to name and shame people, because I can't and won't do that. Right, I hope you found this video useful and that you've enjoyed it. If you have, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be back on Friday where we'll be looking at the booster plug for the Triumph T120 and whether or not it's worth buying. So until then, please ride safely, buy carefully, and I'll see you soon.